Which job is a lot less fun than most people expect? Video game tester. You aren't spending your time playing completed fully realized games. You are playing the same level of a game over and over, seeing if there are bugs. Zookeeper. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome to be around so many amazing animals and care for them. But the smells are ridiculously, insanely foul. I have a really strong stomach and it's still tough for me. We've had some interns quit over it. I was warned about the smells when getting into the field, but thought, oh, I've volunteered at animal shelters. I know what animal stink smells like. Nope. Not even close. I always say the more fun it is to go somewhere, the worse it is to work there, like amusement parks and arcades. Working in a music store, musical instruments, your days are spent listening to 50 different people play 50 different riffs poorly simultaneously, as if they are all putting on their own concert. Lifeguarding. Everyone expects Baywatch act, saving lives all the time. But it's usually just sitting there blowing your whistle, telling little shits to stop ducking around. Being a character performer at Disney. Don't get me wrong. There are some amazing perks and truly magical moments. I know I'm super lucky and tons of people would love to be in my shoes. But the day-to-day work is exhausting in ways I never thought possible. Guests are ridiculously abusive. I've had things said and done to me I never would have imagined. The company isn't always great. It highly depends on your leadership. And there's so much focus on your body and face, good and bad, that it can be incredibly depressing and difficult emotionally. Plus, you have to accept that there's very little upward mobility. Most people grow out of it, and it's rough to know that one day you'll get too old or too fat and you will have to start all over in a new career field. So you constantly are thinking either 1. What you're going to do when you leave. 2. How you're going to keep yourself there. I personally knew it would be temporary, and I now only work there seasonally while I have a normal career. But Disney has a way of sucking you in. Working at a Charles Dickens fair is interesting, but not incredibly fun. It is hard to stay in character, and people get so mad when they see the Alice in Wonderland area. Yeah, we know it's not Charles Dickens, but we can't have a kids play area in the world of Oliver Twist. Okay. Video game testing. I've been working in the game industry for 6 years now, and teaching for 2. Testing video games is thought to be just, oh, you just play games all day? LOL, but it's actually very specific and arduous. First of all, there are a bunch of testing methodologies such as load/soak testing, white room testing, version testing, to name a few. But the most common one is functionality testing. Functionality testing is so if I walk into that corner with a shotgun in my inventory, I can clip through the wall. But if I have my M16 in my inventory, I don't clip through. I do closed captioning. While I joke that yes, I get paid to watch TV, it's actually very tedious. And if you don't actually enjoy the programming, you're being forced to watch something you don't care for. Or worse, if it's something I do enjoy, like a long-form drama, we usually chop those up into 15-minute increments and split between everyone, so I only see chunks and not always even in order. It actually ruins the show for me. Seeing all this makes me feel like I don't want to have a job, but instead live off fish. As in catching and eating. It's my favorite thing to do. Not the job of a fisherman. Acting. All the ones we see on TV and movies are the 0.0001% of incredibly lucky and talented people who manage to thrive in a hostile and overcrowded industry. And even when you are working, the actual job itself is 99% sitting on apple crate in hot makeup waiting for some grips to move a lighting fixture. Then you say 3 lines over and over again for an hour. And then you rap. Video game developer, non-indie, they are notoriously overworked, especially during crunch time. The field is highly competitive too. So I imagine if you have the slightest issue with work being your entire life, it wouldn't be hard to replace you. Voice acting is also pretty brutal. Voice actors generally don't get paid very well and they are straining their throats or whatever. Being a chef. All the flair and awesomeness they show on Vice and Netflix is far from what actually happens in the industry. It's not all fancy plates and tattooed/cool-haired guys doing their thing. It's a drug-infested, law-breaking work environment that only benefits the owners of a restaurant. Managing a dog hotel, breaking up dog fights, dogs shitting in the lobby, and the occasional awful owners. Well, I'm a scientist. I don't know if people usually think of that career as fun, but I think people think it's a lot more eureka, and a lot less this data has to be manually processed for 600 hours before I can analyze it. Park ranger. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. But a lot of days it was less talk about cool animals while wearing your ranger hat and more the toilets are overflowing again. Go clean the septic tank filter and stir the tank with a shovel. With a little bit of hey, there's a methed out guy down by the bridge. Can you convince him to leave without killing anyone? All for the low price of $26K/year with a college degree. Working in a flower shop. It's just like any other retail job. But people constantly tell you how fun your job must be. Also, helping grieving families choose funeral flowers is not fun. Programming. Please help me. I need a hug. Why did I need to be such a nerdy ducking kid when I was younger? Edit. Sorry if I made you guys question your career path. I wouldn't trade programming for anything. D. Trimming weed. Why people think working with weed is like working in a Willy Wonka factory. It's not. You literally get to make tiny cuts with sticky scissors for 8 hours. Event planner. It's hell on earth when you have a million things going on and you're waiting for everything to come together. I honestly think being a streamer and a YouTuber is a lot less fun than it seems to be. But a lot of people know that by now. Still, though, it doesn't seem unfun. Not a specific job, but traveling for work. I'm in tech and a lot of people starting out talk about wanting to go to customer sites and get out in the field. I love to travel for fun, but it's hard to fit in the fun stuff when you have presentations and stuff to worry about, and a lot of times your customers aren't in the fun cities anyway. I also think I prefer the stability and day-to-day schedule of traveling less frequently. Barnes & Noble. Your job has literally nothing to do with books, and it obviously attracts a lot of that type. Myself included. A pediatric nurse. Being a nurse for children and adolescents. Everyone in nursing school talks about how much they want to work with kids. The reality is that a pediatric nurse sees more cases of abuse and neglect than any other specialty. Doesn't matter where you are in a pediatric hospital. It's the thing you see most. I've seen so many DCS, Department of Child Services, caseworkers that I've gotten to know some of them and became acquaintances with them. Sure, working with children and adolescents is great. But people don't think about the most essential piece of that puzzle, which is their families. It doesn't matter how good of care you give to those kids. If you don't loop the parents into that care, you may as well just not be doing anything for them. Honest, most real answer. Any job/every job. Until you've done it. You only have an idealized version of it in your head. Pilot. You could lose your career with a single illness or injury. Which could be happening to me soon. I'm a forensic scientist and it's literally the only thing people ask me about on dating apps. It's very technical work and it's extremely routine. Being a boss or manager of any kind. You think it's gonna be all gravy cause you're on top, but there are two ways it can go. 1. You're overworked and still not getting paid enough for this sh*T. 2. No one is paying attention to your work because you are the boss. So you don't actually have to do anything. Or even have anything to do, so you are just chronically bored out of your skull trying to find something to do that looks like boss work. An artist. Time management is very hard. And it becomes more of a job instead of fun hobby. Flight attendant. I did it for a year. Think you are going to have a week-long layover in Paris? Guess again. You're working the red eye to Detroit. Don't get too excited yet. You're laying over in Cleveland tomorrow. Couple that with a job being boring AF, you just sit around for hours at a time on the flights. And it certainly is much less exciting than you would think it would be. Programmer. People see it as an anonymous figure typing a few lines of code and gaining access to top secret files. In reality, it's 10% coding and 90% searching your problems on Stack Overflow. Theme park security guard / ride assistant, yes, they are the same job. People constantly come at you with the stupidest questions and entitled attitude. All the while your bosses force you to work extra hours every day because they don't have the nerve to tell people to go once it's closing time. Working at Victoria's Secret. People think it's a lot of hot women coming in to buy underwear. But it's mostly Karens. Working in a cinema. People seem to think it's great fun and we get to sit and watch films and eat popcorn. In reality, it's a quarter doing film programming / email / cashing up. A quarter dealing with technical problems when one of the 1,000 pieces of tech you use breaks. A quarter is dealing with complaints about other customers or said tech issues. And the other quarter is spent trying to avoid all of the above. Scientist. I promise you, most of the time it isn't anything like the cool lab scenes in the movies. It's slow and frustrating 99% of the time. I still love it though. Monotony and all. Professional sports. I played rugby semi-pro for 2 seasons and I ducking hated it. Training 6 days a week. Get told what to eat. Team training 3 days a week. 3-hour-long leg days twice a week. 6 or 7 vitamin pills to take a day and then getting up at silly o'clock in the morning to get to the game. When I was a kid I wanted to work in a chocolate factory really bad. I thought that it would be so cool to work in a chocolate factory that I was ready to work there for free. When I turned 16 my dad somehow managed to get me a job for 1 month in a chocolate factory near my house. Apparently I had never seen the inside of this factory. I only got the smell of cocoa when I passed near it. When I went there were no chocolates but just tons and tons of dirty cocoa powder. I'm not kidding. There were cockroaches too, and they apparently just made the raw industrial chocolates in shape of huge cubes and the whole commercial manufacturing was done in another unit. It was so dirty and tedious job. I can't explain. After working there for 2 weeks I left the job and still the smell of chocolate gives me flashbacks and I dread of ever visiting that place.